The annual winter hunting season is back again. Hunter Matty is clearing the snow off the plain. He's gearing up for a hunting trip to northern Alaska, but this year is different from the others. He plans to take his wife and kids along. The reason? He just doesn't want to feel too lonely out there. Also, his daughter Noah is now 8 years old. It's time to teach her some survival skills in the wild, and some hunting knowledge too. So here's the question. If you were in his shoes, would you let your child face such hardships at such a young age? Compared to last year, this winter has arrived quite early. Heavy snow has already dressed the land in a white coat. All signs indicate that this winter will be particularly cold. A plane is slowly approaching in the distance. It's a friend Matty called over, because taking his wife and daughter to Alaska means 2 more people and a lot more supplies. All this together, Matty's small plane just can't handle it. So he's got his friend to help escort his wife and daughter, while he himself will handle transporting the supplies. Compared to Matty's plane, his friend's is much safer. It's got full navigation radar and starts with the push of a button. As for Matty's, no radar, no navigation, flying is all about using his eyes to judge. Even crazier, starting the plane relies on manual cranking. Of course, Matty is well aware of the risks with his own plane. That's why he's having his wife and daughter ride in his friend's plane while he transports the supplies. As the engines roar to life, it signals that Matty's family hunting season has officially begun. But this flight journey is fraught with many dangers. With the temperature already below 0 degrees, if there's enough moisture in the air, it can quickly freeze on the aircraft. If it clings to the carburetor intake, it could cause the plane to fail completely. So they need to stay alert at all times. After several hours of flying, fortunately, there were no incidents. They arrived over the hunting area, found the best spot to land, and both planes landed smoothly. After dropping off Matty's wife and kids, his friend's job was done. Then, under Matty's family's watchful eyes, he left the area. Since they brought a lot of supplies, Matty decided to first take his wife and kids to the hunter's cabin and come back later to transport the rest. Soon, the family arrived in front of the cabin, but at that moment, Matty asked his wife and kids to stop. He wanted to check around the cabin first. The hunter's cabin had been unattended for 6 months. In that time, it's likely some animals moved in. If there happened to be a brown bear inside, going in recklessly could be disastrous. So, Matty, wielding his shotgun, cautiously checked around the cabin. Luckily, after a complete round, he didn't find anything unusual. After making sure everything was clear, Matty led his wife and kids to the cabin door. Then, he pointed out bear claw marks on the door panel to Noah. After explaining, Matty opened the door. As for this trip to Alaska Matty arranged, his wife Domi was very supportive. Domi believes that experiencing this kind of wilderness, hunting life from a young age, is very important for their daughter's future. So guys, what do you think about this way of educating kids? Imagine riding a luxury yacht while enjoying the beautiful ocean scenery. Tired of watching? Try some fishing. This kind of retirement life is what many aspire to. Do you, sitting in front of the screen, long for this kind of life? Please share your genuine thoughts in the comments section. Last time, Tom's daughter, unable to bear the thought of her parents struggling in the mountains, took matters into her own hands and moved the elderly couple to Florida. Here, they could enjoy a comfortable retired life. Besides her family, Tom's son and elderly mother also live here. The reunited family is truly joyful, and the climate here is warm and pleasant. Besides going fishing, Tom can also take carriage rides for fun. This lifestyle is truly enviable. But as time passed, Tom realized he didn't like this life at all. He dislikes the noise of the city and its fast pace, but he can't bear to be away from his family. So he's conflicted every day. Although Tom hides these feelings well, his sharp-eyed mother eventually noticed. She told him life is short and we've already lived most of ours. In the remaining days, do what you want to do. Don't leave any regrets in these limited days. Inspired by his mother's words, Tom finally made up his mind. He decided to return to the Rocky Mountains to live the life he loves. So after saying goodbye to his family, Tom and his wife left Florida. By then, the Rocky Mountains were already covered in snow, and the hunting season had passed for a while. To prepare enough meat for the winter, Tom needed to hurry. Suddenly, the barking of a dog caught Tom's attention. It sounded like his beloved dog was in trouble. He quickly called Ellie back, but Ellie returned covered in blood, which really scared Tom. Had Ellie just been in a big fight? Tom quickly checked Ellie all over, but curiously, found no wounds. So where did the blood come from? To clear up his doubts, Tom grabbed his shotgun to investigate further. Following Ellie's tracks, he quickly spotted the problem. Besides Ellie's footprints in the snow, there were also wolf tracks. Clearly, this was not good news. Then he found the source of the blood on Ellie. It was from an animal carcass left by wolves. With this happening so close to home, Tom knew he had to take action. Local hunters have quotas for hunting wolves, and Tom had one. So for his family's safety, Tom decided to catch a wolf to send a warning to the pack. Using a trap is one of the most practical methods. But since wolves have a keen sense of smell, the trap needs to be boiled to remove any scents. Tom then headed to the area where the wolves roamed. But a sudden heavy snowfall covered the previous wolf tracks, which definitely made setting the trap more challenging. However, these concerns were unnecessary. As an experienced hunter, Tom quickly found the best spot to set the trap. To ensure the trap's effectiveness, Tom specially wrapped the trap in a plastic bag. This way, the trap's smell can be completely covered. After setting the traps, all that's left is to wait for the wolves to come. Do you think Tom can make his first kill since returning? After waiting 24 hours, Tom came back to the spot. Only a white bone remained from yesterday's remains, showing that the wolves had returned last night. But when Tom got to the trap, he looked disappointed. The trap had been triggered, but it was empty. Clearly, catching these cunning wolves with traps is tough. Since no wolf was caught, there's no deterrence to the wolf pack. They will likely return near Tom's home. Because of this, Tom needs to quickly think of another plan. As night falls, to prevent a wolf attack, Tom plans to electrify the fence around his house before bed. However, as he was doing this, Ellie, his dog, sensed danger and became very nervous and unsettled, barking continuously in one direction. Then, a wolf howl sounded from afar. Tom also became tense. If it really was a wolf pack attack, he feared he might not make it through the night. Holding a flashlight, Tom cautiously moved towards the direction of the howl. After searching, he spotted a big gray wolf under a tree, its eyes glowing green. Luckily, it was just a lone wolf. Tom managed to scare it away just by breathing heavily. This incident served as another warning to Tom. He must come up with effective measures quickly. At dawn, Tom went to check the area where the wolf had been last night, but he got quite a scare when he saw several wolf tracks in the snow. Tom guessed that after driving away the lone wolf last night, it might have brought the pack back. Although the wolf pack hadn't caused any damage to Tom's home, they might have set their sights on his family. Nancy goes in and out of the house every day, and Ellie often runs into the nearby woods. The consequences could be unimaginable if they encountered the wolf pack. Since the wolves appear unpredictably, Tom can't pin down their exact timing, so he has to resort to setting traps again. Since the last trap was ineffective, this time Tom increased the sensitivity a bit. If he can successfully catch one wolf, the rest will surely steer clear. The crisis would then naturally be resolved. The snow brought great convenience to the seasoned hunter. Clear footprints allowed Tom to quickly determine where to set the traps. He set the traps just like the day before, wrapping them in plastic bags and covering them with snow. To ensure the success of the traps, Tom set many of the same traps in the area. Do you think he will finally catch a wolf? After a night of waiting, Tom went to check the traps. A noise in the woods caught his attention. He cautiously moved forward, and the sight made him raise his shotgun in alarm. As expected, Tom had caught a wolf. After confirming the animal was no longer breathing and that there were no others around, Tom slowly approached. Looking at the gray wolf lying at his feet, Tom's tense heart finally relaxed. Now with this wolf as a warning, he believes that the pack will no longer approach his home. The sky was just beginning to lighten. Maddie's family got up early to start their hunting trip in Alaska. There's been something quite dangerous he's wanted to do. That's to teach him how to use a chainsaw. Since arriving in Alaska, his desire to learn has only grown stronger. He's been nagging every day for Maddie to teach him. To fulfill his little one's request, Maddie decided to take him to try it out today. Noah was thrilled about this. After breakfast, Maddie's family headed into the wilderness. Firewood is the primary heating material in Alaska. While planning to teach his daughter how to use the chainsaw, Maddie aimed to stock up as much firewood for the winter as possible. Soon, they found a dead tree. Maddie asked his wife and daughter to wait aside and quickly brought the large tree down himself. Next, it was time to cut the tree into smaller sections. Now, it was Noah's turn to try. With Maddie's help, he successfully cut off a piece. After several tries, Noah was satisfied and went to move the logs. Once all the wood was loaded, Maddie called it a day's work. Since arriving at the hunting area, besides teaching Noah wilderness skills, Maddie spent the rest of his time setting and checking traps. Last season, Maddie caught 450 fur pelts, making a tidy profit. This year, he didn't set a high target for himself. He just wanted to match his average income from past years. But his luck doesn't seem too good this year. After several days, his traps were all empty. Even more bizarre, no matter how much Maddie searched, he found no signs of animal activity. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. However, this was just the beginning for Maddie. Over 20 days passed, and Maddie hadn't seen a single animal hair. He began to wonder if he had overhunted last winter, causing a severe decline in game this year. With no income and daily expenses for 3 people plus fuel costs, things couldn't continue this way for long, or he'd be left out in the cold. After much thought, he planned to go home and replan this year's hunting season. So Maddie turned off all his traps, returned to the hunter's cabin, and shared his plan with his wife. She readily agreed, since if they had no income this winter, next year would be one of deficit for them. Soon, a new day arrived. Maddie's family packed up, sealed the cabin, and left the place that depended so much on luck. Where will Maddie go next? Those who watched the first 2 seasons would know. Tom's handcraft skills are among the best locally. Many worthless items often fetch several times their price in his hands. Since returning from Florida, Tom has been busy making a living every day. Yesterday, he successfully caught a large gray wolf, not only eliminating the threat of the wolf pack, but also obtaining a fine wolf pelt, which brought him a nice income. Today, his good friend Tim paid a surprise visit, bringing with him a rotting bison hide. Normally, this kind of fur would be considered worthless and should be disposed of. But Tim believes in the old hunter's exceptional skills, so he brought it to Tom to see if he could work his magic. The hide belonged to one of Tim's clients and had decayed due to improper storage. The client initially wanted to dispose of it, but Tim saw an opportunity and picked it up. If Tom can salvage it, he could make a good profit. For a top-tier leatherworker and hunter like Tom, such a challenging task is undoubtedly appealing. So Tom gladly accepted it. Tom spread out the hide to inspect it and found that it had been sitting for several weeks. Some parts had already started to lose hair. If the hide experiences widespread hair loss, it means it's completely ruined. Fortunately, there's still a chance to salvage it. The first thing to do is to stretch the hide on a wooden frame and then freeze it outdoors. This method can prevent further decay of the hide. After freezing, the remaining fat and rotten flesh can be removed more easily. With outdoor temperatures already below -10 degrees, the hide froze solid soon after being laid out. Then, Tom began his work. The first task is to scrape off the fat and rotten flesh. Since some parts of the hide were decayed, Tom needed to scrape those areas first to completely stop the decay from spreading. This step involves a lot of work. After several hours, Tom managed to clean off the fat and rotten flesh. Next, he applies a special substance made by boiling animal brains with water. This substance transforms the hide into leather. This method, passed down by Native Americans for centuries, is still used by Tom and his wife. After this treatment, the leather becomes very soft, breathable, and water-resistant, making it one of the local fur hunters' favorite techniques. After moving the hide into the warehouse, Tom coated it with this substance. Once the hide dried, the next step was to make the leather even softer, so the third step involves manually stretching it. This process is very physically demanding and also requires careful control of strength. After all, too much force could ruin the hide. This is not a job just anyone can do. Only after Tom was exhausted did he complete this third step. The final step is smoking. Smoking changes the color of the leather, makes it more flexible, and also helps with preservation. The smoking method is simple. Build a wooden frame, set up a fire pit-like device underneath, light a fire, let the smoke rise, and then smoke the hide above the chimney. While it sounds easy, it's actually quite difficult to do. If the fire is not controlled properly, the hide can end up ruined. So, Tom needs to stay vigilant by the hide at all times. The smoking process was very lengthy. Before he knew it, it was night, and the temperature had dropped to below -20 degrees. But Tom stayed by the hide the whole time, and the process didn't finish until late into the night. When he saw the final color of the product, Tom felt that all the hard work over the past few days was absolutely worth it. Holding the perfect hide in his hands, Tom exclaimed, $3,000, just like that. Now he could go back inside and have a good dream. This winter had barely begun, and Tom had already secured a fine wolf pelt and a bison hide worth $3,000. He was confident that this winter would bring him a substantial income. Out in the Alaskan wilderness, Matty was facing a scarcity of game. For a fur hunter, not catching a single animal in over 20 days was utterly despairing. To cut his losses in time, Matty decisively took his wife and daughter back home. But going home didn't mean giving up. He needed to find a new hunting ground and build a new trapping line there. After repeatedly checking the map, Matty set his sights on a more remote area, the perilous Revelation Mountains. The Revelation Mountains were a place no one dared to tread, with extremely harsh conditions, steep cliffs, and broad glacial canyons. Even reaching there by plane was a challenge. So this journey was undoubtedly filled with difficulties. To minimize risks, Matty spent several days gathering information about the Revelation Mountains, hoping to avoid any accidents when he arrived. Before leaving, Matty only took essential supplies and a bag of traps to lighten the load on the plane. Since there were no hunting cabins in that area, Matty's sole aim was to survive there and earn whatever money he could. Because the place Matty was heading to was extremely dangerous, Domi insisted he take a satellite phone, hoping it could help him in case of an emergency. After embracing his family, Matty set off on his new journey. This trip was farther than any before, and it pushed the limits of his small plane. As Matty neared his destination, he only had to cross the canyon ahead to reach it. However, this canyon was not easy to cross. Since it was the only entrance to the area, it acted as a natural wind tunnel, with wind speeds reaching up to 90 kilometers per hour. If Matty encountered it carelessly, he might end up against the canyon walls. But with no way back, Matty had to push forward. Fortunately, the whole process went smoothly. He made it through the valley. Next, he needed to find a safe landing spot. Since it was his first time here, he knew nothing about the ground conditions. What seemed like flat terrain might hide dangers, so Matty didn't rush to land. Instead, he circled overhead a few times before finding a spot he deemed safe to land. Fortunately, the landing spot Matty chose didn't let him down. Matty successfully set foot in this unfamiliar area, Now he needed to secure the plane, since the strong winds here could flip it at any moment. Just as he finished securing the plane, the sky began to drop heavy snow as if welcoming his arrival. But Matty didn't spend time admiring it. He quickly put on his snow boots and found a relatively spacious and flat area in the jungle. Now he had to hurry to set up his tent. It's a double-layer tent, which has an inner and outer layer to keep the heat well insulated. However, in such extreme conditions, a double-layer tent alone isn't enough. So he also brought a stove for heating. Now he needed to chop some firewood. Then he could have a comfortable sleep. Tomorrow, he would officially start his new hunting plan. The Rocky Mountains were already covered in heavy snow. To survive the long winter, Tom needed to stock up on enough meat. Local hunters all have their own hunting licenses, and Tom was no exception. Currently, he had a license for a stag's mate, which he planned to use during this period. To avoid causing extensive damage to the meat, Tom decided to forego using a rifle for hunting and opted for a more primitive method, bow and arrow hunting. Since he had a bow but no arrows, Tom needed to make the arrows himself. Wild rose branches are great for making arrow shafts, and there were plenty near Tom's home. He picked some straight branches, which would help with later processing. After finding a few suitable ones, Tom returned to the warehouse. Next, he began working on the arrow shafts. First, he needed to remove the bark from the branches, then apply an unidentified liquid and heat it. Immediately after heating, he shaped them. Old hunters typically use their teeth for this, and seeing him struggle, you'd worry he might break his old teeth the next second. After shaping, the shafts were complete. Next, he started making the fletchings, then attached the arrowheads, and finally, he painted them for visibility when shot. Now, the finished arrow was ready. After making it, it was time to test its power. Tom's yard had a target specifically for practicing archery. With a twang of the bowstring, he hit the bullseye. The accuracy was extremely high. Tom was very satisfied. Now, it was time for the real deal. Having lived in these mountains for years, Tom knew exactly where the deer frequented. So he quickly found deer tracks and started tracking them for a distance. Indeed, a doe appeared in his sight. But since it was female, Tom couldn't shoot it. So he just watched it leave. But then he thought, if the does are here, the bucks can't be far off. So Tom decided to follow them. Unexpectedly, one of the curious does came running back. It was almost like a silly dog, which really put Tom in an awkward spot. Tom stood still, not daring to move, fearing he might scare it and disturb the whole herd. Seeing no danger, the doe turned and slipped away. Only when the doe was far away did Tom breathe a sigh of relief. He continued deeper into the forest. After walking a few kilometers, Tom finally found his chance. There was a buck, head down, eating, unaware of the danger right at its heels. Tom seized the opportunity and shot an arrow. It was a direct hit. Tom's hunt was successful. The deer weighed about 50 kilograms, enough to provide meat for him and his wife for a month or two. Now, they just needed to butcher the deer and pack the meat by categories, making it easier to use later. So, seeing this, do you think hunting with a gun is better, or with a bow and arrow? Matty got up early today. First, he needed to get a good understanding of the surrounding environment. There was a river near his camp, so he didn't have to worry about drinking water before. But when he went to collect water, he noticed something concerning. As the weather got colder, the ice at the bottom of the river thickened, causing the flowing water to continuously rise above the ice layer and flood the snowy banks. When the river water mixed with the snow, it quickly turned into slush, acting like quicksand. If you get stuck in it, you can't move. And this area was affecting Matty's plane, so he needed to quickly move the plane to higher ground. Soon, he found a suitable spot. After clearing the surrounding trees, Matty drove the plane over and then re-secured it with ropes. This temporarily solved the potential crisis. But since there are only a few hours of daylight here, moving the plane took a lot of time. Now it was too late to go out and set traps. So he simply used the remaining time to chop some firewood for heating. Since this isn't northern Alaska, he didn't have a snowmobile, so he had to move the wood bit by bit. After finishing everything, Matty went to sleep early. Soon, a new day arrived. Since everything had to start from scratch here, the first thing Matty had to do was plan his route. However, these weren't the biggest headaches. The biggest issue was the lack of transportation. He had to rely solely on his legs. This greatly affected his efficiency and wore him out. After a simple plan, Matty headed deep into the jungle. Although he was unfamiliar with the area, Matty's hunting target was clear. He was after a type of marten called the sable, whose fur has a very good market this year, selling for as much as $200 per pelt. As long as Matty's luck wasn't too bad, he believed this trip wouldn't be a loss. Because his backpack could only carry 8 traps, he had to make each one count. With years of trapping experience, Matty quickly spotted sable tracks. So he decisively set a trap here, using the same method as before. He cut down a tree and then tied it diagonally to another tree. Next, he placed the bait at the top of the wood, with the trap right behind it. Just like that, the first trap was set. He continued deeper into the forest. After a few hours of work, Matty had set out all 8 traps. Now, he needed a good night's rest and would check the results tomorrow. A new day quickly arrived. Matty, with his gear, headed to where he had set the traps. He soon reached the first trap, but it was empty. However, Matty wasn't too concerned. It's normal not to catch anything on the first day. He moved on to the second trap location, and, unsurprisingly, it was also empty. Then he came to the third, which was just like the first 2. When he reached the 5th trap, luck finally turned his way. A sable quietly hung in the trap, which greatly boosted Matty's confidence. Initially, he had doubted his choice to come to this unfamiliar area, since no one had ever set foot here, and he didn't know what the natural resources were like. But now, with this promising start, Matty believed he could achieve a good haul here. The next day, Matty planned to press his advantage. While checking the traps, he intended to expand his hunting range. His plan was to use the camp as a central point and expand outwards in a 6-kilometer radius, eventually forming a circular trapping line. This way, even without a snowmobile, he wouldn't have to worry about straying too far from camp. Today, Matty's luck was very good. The first trap had already yielded results. Clearly, the resources here were abundant. So, Matty resolved to speed up the expansion. But sometimes, fate likes to play jokes. When he joyfully reached the second trap, all that was left inside the trap was a sable paw. The sudden mishap cooled Matty's heart instantly. The prey had been snatched away. What could have done it? Matty carefully examined the scene and discovered, from the remaining traces, that the thief was a wolverine. You should know, wolverines are like the big brothers of badgers, with combat abilities so formidable even brown bears would avoid them. They are also greedy omnivores that will eat almost anything. For hunters, the appearance of such a creature on their trapping line might as well mean bankruptcy for that line. Now Matty could only pray that it was just passing through. Then he reached the third trap, but the situation he feared still happened. Other than a triggered empty trap, nothing was left for Matty. A wolverine's keen sense of smell allows it to track from one trap to another by the scent of the bait, destroying an entire trapping line. Seeing what Matty was up against, you can guess what happened next. After resetting the traps, Matty arrived at the fourth trap, and sure enough, the situation was the same as the previous ones. The prey had been snatched by the wolverine. Then he came to the fifth setup point. By now, Matty's frustration was burning. These traps had already cost him nearly $1,000. He needed to find a way to get rid of this nuisance. To kill this kind of carnivore, he would need to use large traps. Due to the weight limitations of Matty's plane, he had only brought 2 spare large traps. He just hopes these 2 can help him out. Otherwise, Matty's hunting season might be ruined again. Then Matty came to a big tree. He used a method of setting a single trap, hanging the bait on the tree. Then he made an entrance with branches for a wolverine to enter, placing a trap at the entrance. If the wolverine dares to enter, it won't be able to get out. Can this kind of trap really catch a wolverine?